Hi, folks. Thank you so much for joining. We're still going to give another minute for people to enter the room. But in the meantime, looking at your Zoom name, if you could please include your preferred pronouns, as well as the city that you are joining us from. We also have a poll link in the chat. Would love for you to vote on this multiple choice question. And then aside of that, I just want to recognize summer is here. And in some of your cities, it is extremely hot. So if you can share the hottest temperature that has hit your city so far, please include that in the Zoom chat. And then if you spent that day outdoors, would love to hear about what you did. Austin, Texas, 110 degrees. Okay. A call for help. Rachel in Oklahoma City, 104 with a sad face. Some of us may have been melting. Let me see here if others have added. And yes, please fill out the poll as well, which is on this slide. There is a link in the chat for you to fill that out. 98 degrees in Lexington, but they had a water slide with foam at a camp. Okay, that is exciting. 115 in Henderson, but did not go outside. Okay, I think folks went from AC to AC, car, home, work. Houston, 105. Seattle, a cool 64 degrees. Okay, some things to be jealous of. Awesome, so let's go ahead and switch over to the poll. We're just gonna look at the poll screen here. All right, so we are asking you the percentage of entities surveyed for ParkScore for 2022. And of those, how many were non-municipal, non-city parks departments, AKA partners? So please get your votes in. I'll give you another 5 seconds. It seems that 28% is in the lead. 35% is coming through. Okay, so it's safe to say that most of you believe that about 44% of you, okay, believe that about 28% were filled out by partners. Well, I'm very happy to share that it was actually 43% of the entities that were surveyed were active park partners, including friends of groups, conservancies, and foundations. So that means 118 of the 275 organizations that filled those out are park partners. So clearly we cannot nor should be expected to do this work alone. To really bring the outdoors closer to home and ensure access to quality parks, that's really what we're going to be discussing in our partnership discussion today. So we can go ahead to the next slide. So for those who do not know me, I am Christina Jang from the 10-Minute Walk team, and we are here today to have the 5th installment of our Community of Practice program. And today's topic is the power of partnerships for strong parks and systems change. For our agenda, we have a moderated panel led by our Tennessee director, Noel Durant. He will guide us through 3 examples on partnership strategies from Henderson, Nevada, Oklahoma City, and then lastly from Houston, Texas. And then as per usual, the second half will be active participation, where all of you will be split into smaller groups for facilitated discussions with our TPL staff. And in the next slide, before I hand it off to Noel, I want to highlight the impact that partnership strategies have on park access. The fastest risers in ParkScore this past year were due to partnerships between parks departments and school districts, private developers, as well as water utilities or watershed management agencies. Our fastest rising cities from this past year were Lexington, Tulsa, and Virginia Beach, all due to the addition of community schoolyards. We also saw from Austin, they increased their access from 62 to 70% due to the addition of publicly accessible developer-owned parks. And then lastly, we also had Henderson that increased their access from 67 to 73% due to in part to new greenway corridors. But today we're going to hear about them talk about working with private developers. So how do cities accelerate access through partnerships? And what was the impact on local communities? With that, I hand it off to Noel to kick off the conversation. Over to you, Noel.
Thanks so much, Christina. I'm Noel Durant, Tennessee State Director for Trust for Public Land. Our office is based in Chattanooga, Tennessee, a 10-minute walk city where their commitment is motivating elected officials and residents to think more critically about park access and strengthening our partnership for great work ahead. With that, I'm thrilled to be your moderator today for a trio of inspiring partnerships for city-shaping parks investments in Henderson, Nevada, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and Houston, Texas. We all realize that in order to do our work effectively and in a way that elevates community values and meets their needs, it's impossible to do this work alone. For this reason, today we're bringing speakers together to share their experiences in fostering partnerships and how it has shaped and deepened their work. First, we'll hear from Kevin and Aaron in Henderson, Nevada. Kevin is a business analyst for Parks and Recreation Department of the City of Henderson. He has over 15 years experience in the parks and recreation industry and over 30 years in financial administration and operations. Kevin is responsible for budgeting, strategic planning, financial analysis, asset management, capital improvement planning, and data analytics. Aaron is a landscape architect and park planner and has over 24 years experience in planning, designing, and developing outdoor environments. Aaron's 14-year career with the City of Henderson has fostered her enthusiasm for public service, long-range planning, and environmental design. Before calling Southern Nevada home, Ms. Ricewerg graduated from Purdue University, studied in Leeds, England, and has lived and worked in Atlanta, Indianapolis, and Philadelphia. Thank you, Kevin and Aaron, for being here today. Can you share how the City of Henderson established best practices and guidelines for working with housing developers? What has been the learning curve, and what is your path forward?
All right, thank you, Noel. I want to thank the Trust for Public Land for inviting the City of Henderson to the community of practice here. We've had some success, and it's exciting to share with other agencies across the country on how we have impacted our parks, park system in a positive manner. The City of Henderson sits directly southeast of Las Vegas Valley, where we have 69 city parks and over 240 miles of trails that's located on over 118 square miles. This provides recreation opportunity to approximately 350,000 residents. The city's population has grown over 35% in the last decade, and this has resulted in an increased need for parks and open spaces, of course. Over the same time frame, we've added 21 new parks consisting of 875 acres to the department's inventory, of which all of them have came from either partnerships and or federal grants. Developers alone contributed 125 acres of these parks, and they're currently valued at approximately $100 million. New parks added to the city's inventory has only been developer-built type of parks since 2015, and the next 3 new parks this year will add an additional 32 acres, all coming from, again, developers. This developer partnership was not easy to achieve at the beginning, since most developers felt that park and open space was wasted profits and they'd rather put more homes out there. But as residents showed the desire to live near parks and open spaces, the developers began to view this amenity slightly differently, and it has been extremely successful for our city. Requiring these developers to build sufficient park systems to ensure adequate green spaces and require that residents are within that 10-minute walk standard, new housing communities that come along in Henderson will be sure to include appropriate access for our current and future city residents. Erin Ricewerg deals more directly with the developers, and she's going to share some of her information as well.
Thank you, Kevin. So, for instance, Cadence Master Plan Community is over 2,200 acres of homes and commercial space. of which, when they are completed, 146 acres will be turned over to the city as public parks. Now, if you noted Kevin above, he said that currently we have 125 acres of developer parks. So that will be almost more than doubling what we currently have. This also includes a private park that they have constructed that has public access. So I think that's important to note, so we all know that if you can't build your own park, getting public access is important. So here are a few key elements that attribute to this success. The first being establishing strong requirements through municipal codes, park agreements, and comprehensive plans and design guidelines. Developers, for us, first meet with our community development department. If a park agreement is required, Parks and Rec is involved and brought in to create the agreement. And then it goes through a process back and forth between the developers and the city. Within the city, the Parks and Rec department, community development, and our city attorney's office work on these types of projects. We also have a master transportation plan that requires trails to be built, but that's talk for another day. The municipal code and our design guidelines also provide developers with requirements on what amenities, products, and construction requirements for each park project that is going to be turned over to the city. Our next factor would be removing those department silos that I know we all have and working closer with other departments and agencies. Along with the departments I previously mentioned, our development process goes through our planning commission, our city council, and our development services center. With that, every single department in the city has dedicated staff to working together on this process. We meet twice monthly on certain types of projects when it gets started, and every department is included in the review process of the construction documents. The last element I would talk about is permitting and construction. Tying park construction to housing permits is successful to holding developers accountable. Park construction must commence by a certain housing type threshold within our city. During constructions, we have triggers in place that stop approval process of housing permits if parks and trails are not being constructed at a timely manner. Communication is key to this process between our park planners, public works quality control who's out on site, and our building department as it pertains to permitting. We have had to institute permitting freezes on projects before. In an extreme case, a developer would construct, say, an element like a shade structure and then call us asking to release 3 housing permits. That brings us to lessons we've learned thus far working with developers. You need to have a strong agreement and make sure the city attorney's office is involved. Be prepared to amend your contracts. Things change, people change, and projects change. Include everything you need in the agreement. For instance, the developer is likely to only do the bare minimum. And if you want a 10-foot sidewalk throughout your entire park, but only ask for an 8-foot minimum, you're not getting that 10 feet. Don't put phrases in your contracts that say would like or may. Use strong language like requires and shall. Next is keeping good records, including who's maintaining the project afterwards, the ownership and public access is key on construction documents and agreements. We require all developer parks to be turned over to the city for ownership. If the HOA or developer decides to maintain ownership, they are required to have public access. The last is timelines and housing permit thresholds are key. I know of 2 developer projects that we've had in the city where they've defaulted on parks. This has led to our housing permit requirements. Nothing's worse than angry residents without a promised park. I assure you, it's not fun. The city is on the hook to complete the park, and we have to find funding to do it, which isn't always an easy thing to do. I want to close with projects are always evolving, and every development can challenge what is working and what isn't. Park Score and the 10-minute walk campaign have opened our eyes to other areas to improve. We have a lot of gated communities and private parks within our system. This has been a lesson that we are currently still learning and trying to figure out solutions for. Currently, we are working with existing HOAs to try to figure out what we can entice them for in order to have them change their private parks to public parks. For instance, maybe the city takes over the maintenance of the park in order to entice them to approve that it will become public. It's definitely a challenge, and we're still looking for ways to improve it. And once a development is complete, it's harder to correct this problem after the fact. So that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Erin and Kevin. And with that, we're going to go over to Rachel and Subi from Oklahoma City. Rachel is a park planner from the city of Oklahoma City, currently pursuing licensure in landscape architecture. Her work includes master planning, landscape design, trail and park system analysis, among planning and design projects. Within her work, Rachel aims to connect Oklahoma City residents with all the benefits of nature. Subhashini Gamagadera, who goes by Subi, is a park planner with the city of Oklahoma City. She has a dual master's from Missouri S&T and the University of Oklahoma in technical communication and landscape architecture, respectively. She is also currently pursuing licensure in landscape architecture in the state of Oklahoma. As a migrant from Sri Lanka, now raising her family in Oklahoma, she is passionate about creating magical moments in people's lives through opportunities for play and exploration outdoors. Rachel and Subi, how did your agency's partnership with utilities come into fruition, and what is its impact on your local community?
Thanks, Noel. We're really glad to be here. Thank you guys for having us, Trust for Public Land. So our partnership is with the Oklahoma City Water Utility Trust, and I will just refer to them as OCWIT. It's been a long-standing relationship, actually since the 1980s. This isn't a recent partnership, but to really understand Oklahoma City and how we work, you have to understand how big our city is, and hopefully that this graphic here will help you understand. By looking at this, you can see that we have the same population as Boston and Washington, D.C., but about 8 to 9 times the amount of land. So what this means is that we experience a lot of suburban sprawl, and we don't have the density or tax base to support parks in the far reaches of our city. So this creates an equity gap in our park access. So we have to really kind of get creative. Utilizing OCWIT property has enabled us to expand our park system and improve park access by about 5%. This moved the needle from 38% access to 43% access. So we still have a lot of work to do in that area. This relationship didn't happen overnight, though. Since the 1940s, actually, city leaders have expressed the potential for these water reservoirs, which at the time were really weedy, overgrown, and inaccessible to the public. At the time, development hadn't quite reached those areas of the city, so any talk of developing them received responses from the public that it would be only for the elite, for those that have nice cars and boats and luxury items already, not for the common resident. But now development's spreading towards the edges of the city, so residents come to these areas and welcome the recreational use of these lakes. So what you see here is the 3 water reservoirs that are protected for drinking water. The brownish orange color represents OCWIT property, and the dark blue lines represent our 100-mile trail system, which almost entirely connects all 3 of those lakes. Activities around the lakes include multi-use trails, kayaking, mountain biking, passive spaces for leisure, art pieces, windsurfing, boating, and fishing, along with sports fields, golf courses, restaurants, and other park spaces that are around those lakes. This protected land has added about 8,000 acres to our parklands and reached residents living outside of the urban core of Oklahoma City, expanding our 10-minute walk access. Now I'll turn it over to Subi.
Thanks, Rachel. Chris Browning, OCWIT General Manager, said of the partnership, while our reservoirs and the surrounding areas are primarily managed to provide high-quality drinking water for our local community, our partnership with the Parks Department has created unique recreational opportunities for our residents. This historical collaboration continues to play an important role in the quality of outdoor spaces available for OKC residents to enjoy. As you can see from some of these posts we pulled from social media, these recreational areas are some of the top destinations within the city. From a parks perspective, some of our key takeaways are, number one, it can be difficult to manage property with another entity. So make sure the goals of each party are outlined from the beginning. Find the common ground or focus on the benefits to the community. For us, it was providing unique recreational opportunities that are tied to large water bodies within a landlocked state and retaining local spending. Number two, create partnerships with private entities to develop and program in key locations. It will boost the number and types of visitors who support these recreational areas. Currently, the water bodies are programmed by one of our partners and the Parks Department, and our multi-use trails activate a good portion of the land acres. Additionally, there are many informal paths and trails that help connect OKC residents to the wilderness and the water bodies. The social, economic, and environmental benefits afforded by these reservations are immeasurable, and we saw how crucial of a role they play in the lives of OKC residents during the pandemic. And as our population expands, we have the option of opening dialogue with Aquid about adding recreational facilities like athletic fields and playgrounds to the reservation that will not impair the water quality of the lakes. This will help us stretch taxpayer dollars that fund park improvement projects, as we won't have to acquire new land. And with that, I will conclude our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel and Subi. And with that, I'm thrilled to hand it over to Elizabeth Howley, who's joining us from Spark Parks in Houston. Elizabeth has been Assistant Director at Spark School Park Program since 2018. Prior to Spark, she worked with Earthshare Texas, a federation of environmental nonprofits across Texas, and part of Earthshare, the national organization. Her background is environmental management and business with experience in both corporate and nonprofit organizations. Elizabeth, can you share with us the history and making the case for schoolyards to fill the 10-minute walk gap in Houston? What is Spark's unique role in the ecosystem of schoolyard partnerships?
Noel, thank you for that question. First, I'd like to give some context. This is a quick overview of Houston. The area of Houston is 656 square miles. You can see in this graphic the areas of these major cities that will fit into the area of Houston. It's a huge, sprawling city. In the most recent survey, the City of Houston's park score is 70th, up from 77th, and Spark's school park program was a big part of that change. The TPL park score and mapping tools help programs like Spark identify high priority areas. These are deep purple on this map. Spark has been working on community schoolyards for almost 40 years. Currently, there are 158 active Spark parks in the greater Houston metro area. Right now, we are working on a park desert initiative with private sector funding to continue to address park equity, areas where residents do not have 10-minute access to a quality park. Back in 1983, there was a Green Ribbon Committee study formed to address park needs in Houston. They found that Houston needs more park space, especially equitable park space. And one of the recommendations was to use public school grounds for neighborhood parks as a cost-efficient means to acquire park land. From that report, Houston's first female at-large city council member, Eleanor Tinsley, started Spark School Park Program from her office at City Hall. Initially, Spark was part of the Houston Parks Board, a nonprofit serving the Parks and Recreation Department. In 1995, Spark became an independent 501c3, but was still considered to be a project of the mayor's office. The contract establishing a Spark Park is an interlocal agreement between the school district, the school, and Spark. For a period of 10 years, the school district agrees to maintain the park. School districts can get out of the agreement if they sell the land, if grounds are needed for exclusive school use, or if there is a safety issue like persistent vandalism or theft. Spark combines the resources of the city, the county, corporations, school districts, private sector foundations, and the schools and their PTOs. Initially, Spark started primarily with corporate funding for park budgets that were between $20,000 and $60,000. Then through the City of Houston, Spark utilized community development block grants, or CDBG, and park budgets got larger. CDBG funding was the primary funding source for many years. However, under our current mayor, CDBG funding is allocated to affordable housing. So Spark has shifted to primarily rely on private sector funding. On the right, you see Spark signage. Parks are open to the community after school, on weekends and holidays. We do not light our parks. Dogs are not allowed and glass is prohibited. To create a Spark Park, we require a letter from the principal stating that they understand the park will be open to the public after school, on weekends and holidays. We ask them to create a Spark committee, usually with an assistant principal, coach, art teacher, additional faculty, the PTO, and the community. We ask them to commit to fundraising at least $5,000 and meeting to discuss their priorities. Spark gives them a budget to work within, and anything more that can be raised will be added to their budget. Spark assigns a landscape architect to work with the committee. Because of this, every Spark Park is unique. We ask that each Spark Park include a public art component involving the students from the school. Usually the art teacher creates this, but if there is not an art teacher, Spark will hire a professional artist to work with students and create the artwork. This allows students to leave their mark on the park. We also publish a Spark Art Calendar, something we've done for over 20 years. The public art component for the newly created Spark Parks is featured in the calendar. We print and distribute 15,000 calendars. When a Spark Park is completed, we hold a big dedication ceremony and invite local elected officials. It's a big celebration marking the opening of a new park. I would like to give a big shout out to Kathleen Ownby, Spark's executive director, who does incredible work and has been the driving force behind Spark School Park program for over 30 years. I'd also like to invite anyone here today to reach out to us if you'd like to know more. Here is our contact information. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for rounding out these excellent introductions on partnering with different entities to increase park access. Now I'd like to bring all of our speakers to the gallery screen for a panel discussion. My first question for our speakers is, how have partnerships enabled you to work more efficiently and prioritize projects to increase equitable outcomes for your city's residents?
I guess I'll start.
Thank you, Erin.
For us, the partners with the developers, it has created kind of like the residents know that we work a lot with developers now, so they kind of expect it. And the developers know that our residents want parks and trails. It's the #1. Whenever we do our annual city survey, it's the #1 element. It beats out even police and fire type stuff, safety stuff. So that I think has helped us a lot. And including the residents in that process has helped as well.
I can go
Thank
next.
you, Aaron. All right, Zuby.
So even though in Oklahoma City we have a lot of land, it can be very expensive, especially in the well-connected areas, to acquire land or building parks. And so this partnership has really helped us out in that regard. So in the case of Awkward Land, it's not just in increasing the 10-minute walking 10-minute access, but also providing unique recreational opportunities within a landlocked state. So because we are able to provide these opportunities within the city, we are able to retain a lot of local spending. Residents are not traveling outside of Oklahoma City to experience a large water body. And I think it's a win-win situation for the residents and the city.
Excellent. Thank you, Subi. And to Elizabeth, to round us out.
So partnerships have enabled Spark to have a staff of only 2 people, plus a part-time social media contractor. We partner with the school so that they are responsible for fundraising and park design, as well as the student-involved public art. We also partner with Trees for Houston and corporations, as well as the county parks department, and that allows for new trees to be planted in the parks. We partner with the city and the county to create more funding opportunities for Spark Parks, as well as from private foundations.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you, Elizabeth. So considering these partnerships that have enabled you to amplify and scale up your work, can you now share how you each incorporated community input to strengthen these partnerships and maximize community benefits?
I'll start again if you want. We can just
Thank you,
rotate
Aaron.
through if that's okay. So even though developers are developing our parks and we have general amenities that we require them to provide, we do public input and master planning on every single park and trail that comes through our city. So typically we will have community input, have the designer or internal house do the designs, then bring it back to the community, and we have the developer involved in the process. So it helps when, say, we had an agreement that we wanted, these 5 amenities, and when we go to the public, they're like, well, actually we want pickleball, not tennis. So that's helped the wiggle room where we have to go back with the developer and go, look, this is what the public wants. And typically we've had success with the developer changing and adjusting amenities. But I attributed that to working with a lot of the developers over time, and we have fairly good relationships with our developers.
Thank you, Aaron.
So, excuse me, here in Oklahoma City, we have a lot of open channels of communication, and I want to say that can be seen as one of our strengths. So residents can reach out to the city with their community needs, suggestions for improvements, or even complaints. So other than that, we have 8 wards within the city that is each represented by a council member, and they do a good job actively seeking community input as well as keeping tabs on the hot topics that reach their ears. And then that information is then communicated to the city or the respective departments. And then other than that, we have advisory boards, friends groups that are made up of community members and that represent various interests and communities within our city. And then, people always reach out to the parks planning group here in parks, the director or the assistant director or the public information and the marketing office here within the parks department. And so we have within the park planning office, we kind of maintain we have an idea of top priorities within certain communities, the hot topics that we hear from the communities. And so when it's time to do park improvement projects, we kind of haven't, we approach communities with a certain understanding, and that has helped a lot. And one example I can provide is that, so within the Hefner Reservation, we have two parks with 2 playgrounds. And we were able to justify that, putting them in, because the need came from the community. And, you know, other than that, we have a presence on social media, and that helps facilitate that 2-way communication. But of course, when we are able to dedicate more staff time, we can, you know, utilize this platform further, and then identify trends and hot topics, you know, more. And then other than that, you know, we are good at holding community meetings when we know a park improvement project is coming up within that community, you know, after hours. And we make sure there's always an online tool so that we open up different avenues of communicating with the city. And so I know, and we are not the only body within the city that collects input from the community when it comes to improving access. Planning department does that too. So when it's time to update master plans, we come together and look at all of that, and then, you know, come up with a strategy on how to maximize the resources we have to provide what we need to provide to the community. Thank you.
Wow, Subi, that was a multi-layered intersection of elected officials, social media, parks professionals. Really impressive, the level of community engagement that's occurring in real time in Oklahoma City. Thank you. And to Elizabeth.
So since it's a school park, we really rely on the school to develop their Spark committee. And that committee has the responsibility of kind of surveying the kids of the school, understanding what their community needs really are, incorporating the community through like the parent-teacher organization, or perhaps they have like a corporation or a small business that is really instrumental in that particular school and helping them with funding, that they can be involved in that Spark committee. And then they meet, the Spark committee is the one who meets with the landscape architect. And what we aim to do there is to make sure that they're working together with the landscape architect to really design a park that meets their needs and is addressing their priorities. And, you know, Spark we want to stay out of it. We want to make sure that they are designing the park of their dreams, that type of thing.
All right, that's great. That's great. It makes a lot of sense, sort of keeping it centered around that school community and the committee. So thank you so much, Elizabeth, for that. So we're coming to a close on this panel discussion. Before I hand it off to Christina, I'd like to invite each of our speakers to close out this panel by sharing a few sentences on a future partnership that you're excited for and looking forward to exploring around parks and new partners.
Well, I'll tell you, we have a new park coming up. It's called Drake Street Park, and we've taken over some land that was a little bit run down. And what we've done is we've set up some partnerships with our community development department, our redevelopment agency, food bank organizations, Boys and Girls Club, and even the Southern Nevada Public Land Management Act. And to be able to, and I think Aaron could probably give a little more details on the park itself, but we're talking about a food or community garden, things like that as far as fresh food and availability. And we've also been able to access the area and create more park space. So it's a really good partnership and a great example of a variety of different organizations coming together to really promote this park. And it's in one of the areas that needs some of that help. So it's a really good idea. And I'm sure Aaron can probably give you more details on the park itself, but that's one that we're really excited that's coming up soon.
So
Gosh, thanks, Kevin.
yeah, real fast. It was located in a food desert. So community development had actually come to us and said, hey, is there any way we could work with you guys and figure out something different that we haven't done to include in the park?
Another sign of those silos coming down in City of Henderson. That's great.
So for Oklahoma City, right now, like probably many people on this call, we are exploring school partnerships. We know it's going to be sort of an uphill battle. It's going to take some time. But luckily, we have people like Elizabeth that I now know. And I know that Trust for Public Land has a lot of great resources too. And so we're really tapping into those. Schools just really have the property already there, especially in the really highly developed areas of our city where we couldn't even purchase property. If we tried, we wouldn't have enough to make a park. So that's something we're really looking forward to. And then as a sort of closing statement, we just want to say thanks again to Trust for Public Land for having us on here. We're looking forward to more partnerships in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Rachel.
So this is a little random, but we recently started a partnership with a local chamber music nonprofit called ROCO, and they have designed signs that we put in the parks, and the signs have QR codes on them. So you take your smartphone and you put it up to the QR code, and it opens up their listening library, and it leads you to a playlist, either joyful, soothing, or bold classical music. And it provides a unique experience for the park goer, as well as something for the students and faculty at the school. And we also encourage partnerships with other nonprofits like Urban Harvest and National Wildlife Federation for schools that want to create community gardens or pollinator gardens within their Spark Park. So we open those doors up.
Excellent. Thank you, Elizabeth.
thank
Yeah,
you
that's a
again.
very innovative, creative opportunity. And before we go back, there's been some participant questions in the chat, and I thought we'd just take a moment to allow City of Henderson to review the maintenance roles again for your developer partnership and minimum parkland requirements, as well as the affordable housing component.
Yeah, so typically when a park is turned over, they turn over all of the land, all the amenities in the park, and becomes city-owned asset. One thing we do not typically include in that is the maintenance. So we as a city have to allocate and look forward to what's coming in, and we dedicate a certain amount of staff to hire when these parks are coming on. I can tell you that this is, Kevin can attest that this is a struggle we have, because it's money coming through the general fund. It's not something we're raising on the side. We do have some trails in some parks where we end up allowing them to maintain all of it. They just are required, if they do it that way, they have to provide and go through our right-of-way department to get public access. That is a new thing that the 10-minute walk kind of brought that to our attention. We were doing it, but not on the level that we're doing it now. And then what was the next? Sorry, I was totally trying to answer.
Let me just chime in the maintenance and operations. The city will gladly let someone else build the park, and we'll just take over the maintenance, because at approximately, I don't know, Aaron, $800,000 an acre out here in Henderson, we'll gladly maintain the park if someone else is going to build it. And that's been very successful and has led to our number of parks reaching almost 70 parks now. So it's definitely a good trade-off for our city, at least.
Wow. Thank you, Kevin. So there was the question of minimum parkland requirements for developers based on number of units.
Yeah, so we have a couple different requirements right now. Our requirements in our code or our guidelines state 5.5 acres per 1,000 residents. So if they can gear how many housing units they have, we have an average of residents. I think right now it's they consider each house or housing like 2.75. So that's how they calculate the acreage. We also have a minimum acreage requirement of 5 acres. So we don't like to accept parks smaller than 5 acres. And we also, when a development comes in, typically if the development is over 50 acres total, that triggers. We don't have an exact number on it. Now we have a rule that basically the city looks at every project that comes in and we determine whether it's going to require a park agreement or not. And then the other thing we do is if they do not provide a park agreement, we have a, what is it called, Kevin? The per unit, we have a cost that basically they put into residential construction tax. So, and it goes by basically every front door that they have to turn in to the city, and that goes to construction of new parks. It just doesn't cover a lot. It does not cover closely near what we need to cover our parks.
Okay, so you're incentivizing developer to build it themselves instead of go with the impact fee.
Yeah, because they
structure.
can build it cheaper than we can because we have to use, oh, what's the terminology, Kevin? They can develop it cheaper than we can because we have certain requirements where we have to go through certain unions and whatnot to get things developed.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you all so much for that detailed response. And thank you again to our speakers for this incredible conversation on the power of partnerships and leveraging them to increase community well-being. Christina, over to you to walk us through the breakout group activity.
Great, thank you, Noel, and thank you to our speakers. I'm just going to pull up one slide really quickly for the breakout groups. So we will have about 40 minutes to enter these breakout groups, and they are sorted by topic. For those who did not fill out the survey, we placed you in separate breakout groups, so apologies if it's not a topic of your choice, but we really hope the 6 options that we have is of interest to everyone. So on the next slide, we can see all the topics that we will split folks into. Each of them will have a TPL facilitator that will walk you through the following. What is the current status of this partnership in your city? Share your city's goals for this strategy, as well as sharing examples and success stories. So with that, we can set the breakout room timer to 41 minutes, very exact. And Malik, you can go ahead and open up the rooms.
Hey Malik, we finished early, so just a heads up that there's a group coming in.
Okay.
Hey folks, I know some of us have returned. I think we're waiting for the larger group and we'll have a closing poll soon. And hand it over to Christina, who has just joined us.
Thank you, Jen. It's always kind of a juggle of time of when folks close out their breakout groups. Just gonna give folks a few moments to join us. Jen, do you mind putting the poll link chat into the chat? As folks are rejoining, if you could please fill out this poll here. We'd love to hear more about what you spoke about specifically in your breakout group. And if folks are having any trouble accessing, please let us know in the chat. You should be able to see the poll link. All right, I think folks may be having a bit, okay. Got it. I'm just gonna give another kind of 30 seconds for folks to fill this out. But in the meantime, we can go to the next slide. I just want to give a friendly reminder that we have one last workshop on September 14th, and this will be related to climate adaptation and resilience strategies with their Parks Works, and then the related health benefits from these strategies. By our next session, we also look forward to sharing more about our updated programming to continue the community of practice, and we'll be sharing that information in September. And then with that, I just ask if you could please fill out the exit survey and it'll populate in the chat soon. Perfect. These exit surveys are really quick. They really take less than a minute for folks to fill out, but they are really informative as we plan each session. So if you could please click on that link and submit your response to the exit survey, that'd be really helpful. And then the last slide. Here's my contact information. If you have any questions for myself or any of the presentations today, don't hesitate to reach out. I just want to give, again, a big thank you to our speakers, Noel, Kevin, Aaron, Rachel, Subi, and Elizabeth Thank you for such a rich discussion about how you approach partnership strategies in your cities and sharing with us all. And then, of course, a big thank you to all of you for joining our conversation today and sharing your own unique approaches with one another. So with that, I bid you all a goodbye and a wonderful summer, honestly. I'm excited to see folks in September, but also hoping everyone gets some kind of time off. But yes, let's please keep in touch. And if you have any questions, reach out at any time. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Hey, Malik, you can go ahead and end the session. Thank you.